Sandor here for Woodworker's Journal magazine and the Skill Builder series on woodshop machine maintenance. And today I'm going to talk about tuning up the jointer, a machine that might not be as versatile as a table saw or capable of fancy cuts like a shaper or router table. But if it wasn't for the jointer's ability to create a flat surface or a straight edge on our workpieces, those other machines would be pretty much out of business. Jointer's not a particularly difficult machine to tune up. It just requires a certain amount of care and patience in following all the steps necessary to assure that your machine will operate safely and cut true and clean. These steps include checking the tables for parallel, changing and setting the knives, setting the height of the outfeed table, adjusting the fence and its stops, and checking the cutter head guard as well as the drive belt and pulleys. As always, before doing any work on your machine, unplug it from power and clear the chips from the jointer's dust chute. Then vacuum any sawdust that's left up inside the machine, as well as from around the tool's base and tables and cutter head assembly. Before starting any adjustments, clamp the jointer's guard in the open position so that it leaves the entire cutter head exposed. Then reposition the fence so that it's fully clear of the tables. To check the joiner's tables for parallel, take a long straight edge or carpenter's level and set it across both tables. Now slowly raise the infeed table until it's level with the outfeed. The straight edge should sit flat and not rock back and forth. If it does, it's likely the tables have drooped and are lower at their ends than near the cutter head. To see if the tables are lower in the middle than at the ends, try to slide the thinnest feeler gauge you have under the straight edge near the cutter head. If the straight edge checks reveal a problem, you can often bring the tables back into parallel by resetting the jointer's gib adjustment screws. In preparation for changing and setting the jointer's knives, remove the motor cover so you have full access to the drive pulley. To remove the knives, rotate the cutter head so that a knife slot faces directly up. Then carefully loosen the bolts that secure the knife gib and the knife itself in place. To lift the knife and gib from the cutter head, I recommend that you use a powerful magnet and wear work gloves to prevent any accidental cuts from these sharp blades. After all the knives have been removed, scrub out each head slot with a stiff bristle brush to remove any caked-on sawdust and grime. Then blow the slot clean using compressed air. Before installing a new set of freshly sharpened knives, clean each of the gibs with a solvent or penetrating lubricant and wipe them dry with a rag. Before inserting the new knives, turn the bolts on the gibs so they won't stick out too far, and make sure each knife's beveled edge faces the outfeed table and the cupped edge of each gib faces up. Now gently turn the bolts until they apply only a slight bit of pressure against the head slot. Position each knife in the slot so that it extends beyond the edge of the cutter head by only a 32nd of an inch. Then tighten the gib bolts just a little bit more. With all the knives in the cutter head, it's time to set their height relative to the outfeed table and to each other. The trick is to turn the jack screws at each end of the cutter head and raise the knife just a little until it makes contact with a small wood strip laying on the outfeed table. Once a knife is roughly level with the outfeed table, check its height by setting the stick near one end of the knife, then turning the cutter head by hand and observing how far it drags the stick forward. The amount as gauged by fine lines drawn on the stick should be the same at each end of the knife, as well as for each knife in the cutter head. If it's not, tweak the jack screws until the amount of drag is the same. Now fully tighten the gib bolts until each knife is safely secured. Start with the bolts closest to the center of the gib, Then tighten the ones near the ends. Unfortunately, tightening tends to upset knife height, so you'll need to go back and check the knives again with your drag stick and readjust them as necessary. It's important to fine-tune the height of the outfeed table after the knives have been changed, so that the knives just kiss the edge of a short, straight-edged board. Raise or lower the table as necessary while turning the cutter head by hand. An outfeed table set too high causes snipe at the front end of a jointed board, while a too low table will snipe the board's back end. The next tune-up task is to adjust the joiner's fence and angle stop. Start by bringing the fence in full contact with its 90-degree stop and checking to see if the fence's face is square to the table. If it's not, loosen the screw's lock nut and back the screw off a little. After squaring the fence to the table, reset the stop screw and retighten its lock nut. To confirm your fence stop setting, take a test cut by jointing a wide board, then checking its edge with a good tri-square. Finally, to keep your joiner operating safely, make sure its guard functions properly. The guard's spring tensions should be set so that it springs back fully and quickly after a board is passed over the cutter head.